Dark zones. That's what they're called now. To survive, we must find out what motivates our very existence. Will we help those in need? Will we cave into temptation? Will we betray our own instincts? The deeper we go, the closer we get to finding out what we are capable of doing.
8 years ago today, Ubisoft released the first ever Division Dark Zone trailer. I remember watching this for the first time and thinking to myself, I need to play this game. At the time, there was nothing like it, and honestly, this still holds true today. The Dark Zone is a specialized PvEvP area where players can engage in high-stakes gameplay. I fell in love with the intense atmosphere, challenging enemies, and the unique dynamic of encountering both NPCs and other players. For this video specifically, I'm going to focus on Division 2 since it is the latest installment in the series and because they're still adding content and updating the game. I have over 200 days played in Division 2 divided between two main characters, over 8,000 rogue agents defeated, almost 20,000 shade agents defeated, and my highest manhunt rank is 245. This is why the PvP sucks in the Division 2. The key to a good PvP experience in any game is proper balancing, and this is something the Division 2 was never able to achieve. Now, we can go on all day about how one patch was better than the other, but I think it's important to focus on the present and the future. Currently, the Division 2 suffers from extreme balancing issues, and it's one of the main reasons why the PvP community is so small. Let's take skills and hazard protection as an example. The whole purpose of hazard protection is to protect the agent from status effects, right? So the higher your hazard protection is on your build, the less effective enemy status effects will be. A direct counter to status. Great. But what about skill damage? The issue with skills in PvP is they have two damage sources, status and skill damage, which means you can have 100% hazard protection on your build and still get killed by a glass cannon fire sticky because there's no direct counter to skill damage. This is the problem with skills in PvP, and it's the main reason why it's so easy to kill other players with these types of builds. Think about how many times you fought someone, they get killed, and then immediately switch to a glass cannon skill build and kill you in one shot across the map. It's not the player's fault. It's just poor game design. Now, before anyone gets angry in the comment section below, I want you to know that I love the skills in Division 2. Bleed Hive to slow players down, Fire Sticky to prevent an enemy player from ADSing, Foam to glue a player to the ground so they can't move, and even the EMP Sticky to stagger enemy players and jam them. This is what these skills should do in PvP. They should not be able to one-shot players. The best solution to this problem is to either rebalance skill damage in PvP or change hazard protection so it counters both status and skill damage simultaneously. For example, if I have 50% hazard protection on my build, the status duration should be cut in half and the skill damage should be cut in half as well. I also believe explosive resistance should just be removed from the game and added as a part of hazard protection. Now, I know what you're thinking, this guy hates skill builds, he wants them removed from the game, but that's actually not the case because I think skill builds should be a thing in PvP since it is part of what makes the Division the Division. Now, skills aren't the only problems. One of the biggest issues with PvP that affects both skills and weapon damage is the glass cannon talent. This talent, in my opinion, has no place in PvP. It does not belong in PvP. Glass Cannon is extremely overtuned for both DPS builds and skill builds, and it's the main reason why one-shot kill builds exist. I firmly believe if the developers rebalance skill damage, change hazard so it includes explosive resistance and counters both status and skill damage, and remove Glass Cannon from PvP areas, the PvP experience would be way more enjoyable. Here's a list of just a couple adjustments phrased as if they were patch notes, and shout out to my clanmates for helping me with this one. For example, Explosive resistance has been removed from the game. Hazard protection gives explosive resistance and negates skill damage. Glass cannon has been disabled in conflict and dark zone areas. Fixed an issue where a player would trigger PvE damage upon death and respawning with a fire sticky bomb. And lastly, expertise capped to 15 in PvP areas, or honestly, just completely removed from PvP. I think these changes alone are a step in the right direction for making PvP more balanced. PvP is unrewarding and lacks progression. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, I have over 200 days played in this game and my watch level is only 2,000. Now a PvE player with 200 days played is going to have an extremely high watch level since every activity they do rewards them with XP towards their Shade Watch. Every activity in the game, whether it's PvE or PvP, should reward you for your time. I can kill 100 players in the Dark Zone and my watch level will never go up. I can clear a rank 300 manhunt and my watch level won't go up. This is also another reason why people stay away from the Dark Zone. It's unrewarding, and honestly, it's not worth anyone's time. Sure, I can go into the open world, do some control points, some bounties, open world activities, but as a PvP player that wants to spend all of their time in the Dark Zone, I feel like I'm wasting my time. There's no sense of progression, which means there's no reason to PvP in Division 2. There's other elements of the Dark Zone that are unrewarding as well. Take Manhunt status for example. The only real goal of the Dark Zone is to rank up a high Manhunt and fight off the entire server. You turn yourself into a high priority target and every player wants to take you out. You can clear a rank 300 Manhunt and you'll only be rewarded with several proficiency caches full of gear that you honestly don't need. Clearing a high Manhunt rank should reward players with Shade Watch XP, exotic caches for every X amount of Manhunt levels, exotic components to use towards expertise, material caches, or even large quantities of DZ credits that you can use to purchase exotic caches. None of this currently exists in Division 2. You can't really expect a player to PvP if they aren't going to feel rewarded in the end. I also feel like if they just increased the exotic drop rate in the Dark Zone and made exotics drop like candy, everyone would be in the Dark Zone because we need components for expertise. It would create that high risk, high reward environment that's missing from the game. The extractions would be active and the Dark Zone would always be full. At the end of the day, this was always supposed to be the model for the Dark Zone. High stakes gameplay that offers a rewarding experience. Every supply drop should contain an exotic. Force players to fight for resources, components, high tier loot, and most importantly, reward them for their time. Build diversity is also a huge issue in PvP, and it's because the time to kill is way too fast and half of the talents in the game are useless in PvP. Most of the time you are forced to run talents like Unbreakable and Adrenaline Rush simply because it's the only real way to survive with your team. I'm confident that almost 80% of the PvP players in Division 2 use the Firewall specialization because it's the only armor kit in the game that allows you to tank damage and survive, for example, glass cannon status effects. Sure, you can put on a healer, but even then, you still risk getting one-shotted by a fire sticky bomb or a glass cannon build down the street. In addition to that, players are stationary when popping kits, making them even more vulnerable to getting one-shotted versus Division 1 where you could heal yourself while moving. Next, let's talk about talents. The real reason why people use the same talents and builds in PvP is not because they're quote-unquote YouTube builds. It's because most of the talents in the game are overshadowed by talents that are actually well balanced for PvP. The most popular gear piece talents for PvP include Spotter, Unbreakable, Efficient, Intimidate, Glass Cannon, Vigilance, Companion, Wicked, Adrenaline Rush, Concussion, Galvanize, Opportunistic, Creeping Death, Empathic Resolve, and Focus. Now, here's a list of talents that players barely use.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
That's 15 gear talents that people use consistently in PvP and 30 gear talents that are underutilized. These 30 talents need to be stronger if you expect anyone to use them over the 15 talents that are actually well balanced. The PvP suffers from severe network and stability issues. Lag, Server instability and network problems can significantly impact the experience. Players may experience delays, rubber banding, delayed damage, or disconnections, which can lead to a very poor PvP experience. All of these things I just mentioned are present in Division 2. After almost 5 years, Division 2 still crashes on PS5 frequently enough to ruin the experience. The main one being getting blue screened in the middle of a manhunt, forcing my teammates to clear the manhunt just so I can join their squad again. This is a huge issue because it takes hours to rank up high manhunts, and it can be extremely disappointing to a player whose goal was to break their new manhunt record. You also have the issue with fighting players from different server regions. If I'm fighting a player from a Europe server who's VPNing to my East Coast server, that player will always have the advantage. There's a high chance that you will notice delayed damage because some players have extremely high ping. PvP never really seemed to be a priority, and it's truly a shame because the whole concept of the Dark Zone is incredible. The game that was showcased in the Dark Zone trailer 8 years ago is what made me fall in love with the Division franchise. I'm actually very excited for the Division Heartland, which is a new free-to-play PvEvP extraction shooter that might actually release sooner than we think. You also have Division Resurgence on mobile, which I had the chance to play and was actually impressed with how good the graphics are and how well the game played at 60 FPS. I just really don't want the developers to forget about the PvP community because, believe it or not, we're actually the biggest fans of the franchise and we have an endless amount of hours played. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments section below, and if you want to see more Division videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed. Take care.